Yeah, morning. It's me again for you. And yeah, I woke up a bit late today, but yeah, I mean, you have to be consistent. Keep going, right? Yeah, so today I want to talk about how to find your purpose. Because everyone knows that, if you do something that you're naturally passionate about, it's going to come very easily to you. And everyone says you need to find your purpose. All the gurus, they tell you need to find your purpose. You need to go and find your purpose. All the coaches, they tell you need to go and find your purpose. And the way that sounds, it's like your purpose is something external that you need to go and find somewhere. But that's actually not true, because your purpose is already in you. And if you dig down internally enough, you're going to find it. Because when someone says you need to go and find your purpose, you need to go and see what you're actually passionate about, it seems like you need to go and find it somewhere. But where are you going to go and find it? Yeah, it's not about you going to discover yourself in an Asian country, or in an island or something like that. Like, your purpose is already in you, and if you dig inside, you're gonna find it. It's much more easy to do it that way than going somewhere to discover yourself. Like, it doesn't make sense. And how do you do that? Like, how do you dig inside? Because it's very abstract, like saying like you need to dig inside of you. The way you do that is you look at your physical space. For example, like, you look at what always surrounds your physical space, what always surrounds your office, what always surrounds your room. And these things are going to tell you more about, like, you look at the things that lie in your physical space. For example, if it's your kids, if you have kids, if it's technology, if it is books, if it is, learning material. For me, for example, I always have books around my space. I always have some technology, and I always have, because for me, for example, I always have some books around my space. I always have some technology around me. I'm always with a phone or a computer, like this type of things, right? And this tells me a good indication about the things I naturally like to keep around me. Another question you can ask yourself is, what do I always think about in your mind? Like, what do you always think about in your mind? What is something that your mind always turns back to? Always, that is always in your mind all the time. And for me, it's always about problems that I haven't solved yet, So I'm naturally a person that never gives up. And if I can't solve something, it really disturbs my mind a lot. And sometimes, if I get stuck on a task, I'm gonna be like, bro, I need to find a solution to this thing. Like, I'm that type of person, like, it's very persistent. I don't want to let something, defeat me. You need to think about the things that you always think about. I always think about, like, politics and stuff like this. So you need to think about, what do I always think about? Like, there's something in your mind that always disturbs you, that always comes back all the time, again and again and again. And those things tell you much more about what your genuine interests are than going to see, a therapist or something like that. Because you're naturally interested in those things, and it doesn't need anyone to tell you what to think about. Another thing that you can do is what do you always talk about? What do you always bring back in the discussion? If you guys are having a gossip with your friends or something, what do you always, bring the topic to? Which topic do you always direct the conversation to? Those things are going to tell you much more about the things that you're interested in than going to see someone to tell you that. And sometimes you can even ask the people around you. Ask them, like, what do I always think about? And they're going to tell you that, oh, you always talk about this thing. You always say this. You always bring this type of discussion. You always talk about this topic. And so on and so forth. And yeah, those things are going to tell you much more about your purpose, about the things that you're genuinely interested in, than any external method. Another thing that you can do is to ask yourself, what do I always gravitate back to, So for example, you have tried some things before. There are some activities that you always gravitate back to. For example, for me, I love to be active. I don't like to be bored. I don't want to be still in something, without doing anything. Like, I love activity. I don't like boredom. And there are some activities that I always try to do, like physical activities, I always like to learn. I like to go meet people and stuff like that. So there are some things that you always gravitate back to in terms of activity. There are some activities that you always come back to at the end of the day, you know. And those things are going to tell you much more about the things that you're genuinely interested in than any external method, basically. And yeah, so when they say go and find your purpose, oh, it's a bit cold, crazy. My ears are going to freeze. Yeah, so when someone says go and find your purpose, you need to find your purpose. It's not your purpose, is not something external. Your purpose is something that is already inside of you. And your job is just to dig it out, you know? Because there's some things that you do subconsciously and you don't even realize that these things, as you're actually doing something, like ask yourself, like, what do I always catch myself back doing or saying or, you know, thinking without my conscious mind being on it? And this involves things like you just say something, and then later you thought about it. You're like, oh, what did I even say about this? You know. And of course, your purpose is not something that is like static all over your life. Your purpose is something that changes over your life. You know, you might have a different purpose, and it changes over your lifetime. And usually, it is you as an adult trying to resolve your childhood. You know, lackages, your things that you lack in your childhood. Those are usually the things that you try to achieve when you're an adult. Your childhood, you know, your childhood traumas. Basically, you're trying to solve your childhood traumas, and when you become an adult, you usually try to solve the things that traumatized you when you were a kid. And those are usually the things that you're gonna naturally interested in. So yeah, I hope that this video helps someone out there. And without further ado, let's go get it.